April 28th, 2025, Donald Trump released an executive order that is extremely problematic for the African American community, especially African American men. It is an executive order that essentially unleashes cops on black men. It is horrible. And I told you it was coming. I told you it was coming. So now, many of the same men who bashed Kamala Harris and supported Donald Trump is going to pay a price, because this executive order is awful, strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. That sounds so good, protecting innocent citizens, right? Sounds so good. Clean up the streets. Protect the innocent. But that is not what this is about. What he's doing in this executive order is really not even necessary, because violent crime has been decreasing since 1990. 1990. Look at it. And that is a steady, sharp decrease. Since 1990, there was a little uptick in violent crime right around 2020, and that was when COVID started. So why all this law enforcement? And I'm going to walk you through this executive order. I want you to see this is bad. And it's coming to the black community. Trump told us that in so many words. I'm going to show you that as well. So if violent crime is coming down, then why all this law enforcement? Why all the law enforcement if violent crime is coming down from a peak around the 90s? Why these guys if violent crime is coming down? Why send those menacing police officers with their AK-47s or AR-15s or whatever they have there? Why send them into the hood when violent crime is sharply coming down? Now, you heard me say, he's sending them primarily to the hood. So how do I know? Because he said so. He said so when he visited that Detroit church while he was on the campaign trail. Let's listen to what he says.
We'll bring back public safety and defend our communities for law-abiding American citizens. Look, the crime is most rampant right here and in African-American communities, and more people see me and they say, sir, we want protection. We want police to protect us. We don't want to get robbed and mugged and beat up or killed because we want to walk across the street to buy a loaf of bread. They want it so badly. The fake news doesn't talk about it. But the black population wants law enforcement more than any other population. So I think it's an important thing to say.
So there you have it. He said two things in that clip. One, he says that most of the crime is committed in the African-American community. And he also said that he has been begged by black people to send those guys in. Right? That's what he said. So he's going to send them in, these guys, yet at the same time, violent crime is what? Is going down. All right, so let's take a look at his executive order. It is really serious and very dangerous for African American people. Let's go look at it. Now, here it is. Strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. And might I point out, he uses the word unleashing. Unleashing. All right, so let's scroll here and read this. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1, Purpose and Policy. Safe communities rely on the backbone and heroism of tough and well-equipped police force. Tough and well-equipped. Those words are in there for a purpose. My administration is steadfastly committed to empowering state and local law enforcement to firmly, I want you to see all the hyperbolic words he used to drive his point home. To firmly, he's trying to make the point. I'm not playing around. I'm not playing around with you folks. Firmly police dangerous criminal behavior and protect innocent citizens. When local leaders demonize law enforcement and impose legal and political handcuffs that make aggressively enforcing the law impossible, so he wants the law enforced aggressively on some of you same folks who voted for him, who supported him, who dragged Kamala Harris, talking about her prosecutorial record. Well, now you're getting ready to really deal with some stuff. And when he talks about when local leaders demonize law enforcement and impose legal and political handcuffs, basically forget any sort of police reform. Forget any kind of prosecutorial reform as far as he has anything to do with it. He says, my administration, therefore, established best practices at the state and local level. What kind of best practices do you think he's talking about? What kind of best practices do you think he's talking about? I'll show you one of them. Watch this.
Joe Biden and the defund the police Democrats have turned our once great cities into cesspools of bloodshed and crime. There's never been anything like it. Here's my plan to restore law and order in our cities and throughout our country, frankly. First, because police forces have been gutted by Democrats' war on police, I will sign a record investment in hiring, retention, and training for police officers nationwide. So important. This bill will also increase vital protections for officers because the Democrats want to take those protections away from our police because we want them to do their jobs right. You can't take their protections away if you're going to have them do their jobs properly. Second, to qualify for this new funding and all other Justice Department grants, I will insist that local jurisdictions return to proven common sense policing measures, such as stop and frisk.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Stop and frisk. 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 Stop and frisk.
You love your craft. The day-to-day tasks of running a home service business? Not so much. With House.
Stop and frisk. Stop and frisk. Stop and frisk. Man, I made a few videos talking about what was coming if he was reelected. And stop and frisk is not all that's coming. No. That's just one. That's just one of the things that he has in mind. Okay, let's go back now and finish reading this executive order. So he goes on to say, establish best practices at the state and local level for cities to unleash high-impact local police forces. You say, well, how can he do that? He's over the federal government because of the money, the federal funding that he controls. These local law enforcement departments, and there are a bunch of them, 18,000 or so across the country, they depend on federal funding. And he's going to condition that federal funding on them implementing these policies, these so-called best practices. So that's how he's going to do it. So it goes on to say, and local level for the cities to unleash high-impact local police forces, protect and defend law enforcement officers wrongly accused and abused by state or local officials. Now, tell you exactly what that means. That means that he wants to stop all this holding police accountable for the stuff they do to African American men. Stop all these lawsuits, all this litigation. Because in his mind, they're just doing their job. So what? They bang a few heads. So what? They violate the Constitution. So what? They kill innocent, unarmed black men. So what? They're doing their jobs. All right? I'm helping you read between the line of this. Read between the lines. My administration will work to ensure that law enforcement officers across America focus on ending crime. Watch this. Not pursuing harmful, illegal race and sex-based equity policies. Man, Trump hates equity, equality. He hates it. So he says if he has anything to do with it, cops are not going to be out there thinking about whether what they're about to do is equitable, if they're treating people right or wrong. In other words, he's going to make sure that they're not thinking about civil rights and trying to treat people with respect and all that. He wants them out there, as he said, ending crime and not being concerned and bothered with illegal race and sex-based equity policies. The result will be a law-abiding society in which tenacious. When I hear somebody talk about tenacious law enforcement as an attorney, as a civil rights and criminal defense lawyer, I imagine them kicking in doors, banging heads. I imagine them throwing people to the sidewalk, smashing their heads into the cement. That's what I hear, because that's exactly what I see. As a civil rights and criminal defense attorney who represent mostly black people and especially young, middle-aged, and older black men. I told you this was coming. I told you. Tenacious law enforcement officers protect the innocent. Violations of law are not tolerated, and American communities are safely enjoyed by all their citizens again. Now, let me say this. Who doesn't want safe neighborhoods? We all want safe neighborhoods, right? I want my neighborhood safe. You want your neighborhood safe. So to the degree that we're getting safe neighborhoods, that's great. But what is it that I've shown you already several times? Violent crime is going down. Violent crime is going down sharply. So yeah, we want safer neighborhoods, and we're getting safer neighborhoods without kicking in doors without a warrant or without banging folks' heads into the cement and shooting innocent, unarmed men. We're already seeing a drastic decrease in violent crime. Section 2, he goes on to say,
3 signs your car accident is worth major compensation. If you've been in a car accident recently, there are
the Attorney General shall take all appropriate action to create a mechanism to provide legal resources and indemnification to law enforcement officers who unjustly incur expenses and liabilities for actions taken during the performance of their official duties to enforce the law. This mechanism shall include the use of private sector pro bono assistance. Private sector pro bono assistance. Where do you think that pro bono assistance is coming from? All those law firms that agreed to provide pro bono services on his behalf. That's where that's coming from. But also, let's go back, and I want you to look at this word, indemnification. Indemnification. You see, cops don't even need to be indemnified because they already are. When a lawsuit is brought against a cop and it ends up in some money damages, money judgment, etc., their employer pays that money. They don't need further indemnification. And besides, that is the reason why we have worked so hard over the past few years to try to get rid of qualified immunity. Because a lot of these cops know if they bang your head up against the cement, whether it's lawful or not, they know they don't have to come out their pockets, most likely because qualified immunity will probably get the case kicked out of court. And if not, if they are found guilty or liable or whatever and end up having to pay money, again, their employer will most likely have to pay that money. So they don't need more indemnification here. But believe it or not, it gets worse. The Attorney General, Section 3, and other appropriate heads of executive departments and agencies shall take all appropriate action to maximize the use of federal resources to provide new best practices to state and local law enforcement to aggressively police communities against all crimes. And jump down where I have it highlighted there. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the Attorney General shall review all ongoing federal consent decrees, out-of-court agreements, and post-judgment orders to which a state or local law enforcement agency is a party, and watch this, and modify, rescind, or move to conclude such measures that unduly impede the performance of law enforcement functions. Folks, they're going to get rid of consent decrees, which are agreements between the Justice Department and local police departments that they will not bang black people's heads against the cement and violate their civil rights. Trump is directing his Attorney General, Pam Bundy, to rescind those things, to modify those things. What is this going to do? This is going to unleash more crazy, violent policing in the black community. We have worked so hard to try to bring reforms. All the reforms that were done as a result of the George Floyd lynching, he is trying to erase all of that. And you remember he thanked black people for putting him in office again? He thanked them the first time. Now he's thanking them a second time. And yet, turning around and doing this. Now, have you heard anything about this executive order? You haven't heard a thing about it, most of you. Didn't know it existed. You certainly didn't hear it from the pro-black imposters. They're definitely not going to talk about this. They don't want you to know this. And if you knew this, they would play it down. Oh, this is okay. This is nothing. Oh, this is a really big deal. This is where the rubber hits the road. But it gets worse. Within 90 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Defense, in cooperation or in coordination with the Attorney General, shall determine how military and national security assets, training, non-lethal capabilities, and personnel can most effectively be utilized to prevent crime. There is something called posse comitatus, but obviously they're going to try to get around that and give them assets. Assets. That means tanks. That means assault rifles, pistols, grenades. This is basically another declaration of war on the African American community. Why do I harp on the African American community? Because he did. He told us. He said that most of the crime is occurring in the African American community. And secondly, African Americans are pleading with him to bring all this in. Despite the fact that violent crime is going down sharply. See, that's the data. Okay? That's the data. We rely on the data, not the anecdotes, because we all know and we hear on the evening news that this or that African American youth, this or that African American man was involved in some sort of crime and somebody got killed. That happens far too often. Yes, we understand that. But that is anecdotes. The data says that is decreasing. Here's the data. That is decreasing.
Guys, the new puzzle game Royal Kingdom just launched, and I figured we're all gonna be playing it a lot, so I'm here to answer any
Yet he wants to bring in the military. And not just the military, folks, but Homeland Security. Section 6, use of Homeland Security Task Force. The Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall utilize the Homeland Security Task Force, HSTFS, formed in accordance with Executive Order 14159 of January 20th, 2025, protecting the American people against invasion, to coordinate and advance the objectives of this order. So these African American communities, high crime African American communities, are now about to experience the wrath of the United States military, Homeland Security, and God knows what other agency. And oh, by the way, don't forget that he told the El Salvadoran government that homegrown criminals would be next. Don't forget that. Add that to all that you just heard about this executive order. Despite the fact that violent crime is going down, it's going down. This is not needed. I want you to notice that I have on a dark gray suit, which almost looks black, and a white shirt. And I thought it was so appropriate because it looks like funeral attire. Just put a black tie on and I could go and be a part of any funeral. And I think it's appropriate because we're getting ready to see a lot more young black men die at the hands of police. Mark my words. And sadly, unfortunately, some of them voted for this. Listening to pro-black imposters, black conservatives. Well, this is what's coming. And keep in mind, this is only the 101st day of his administration. We literally got 4 more years of this. And he said today that they're just getting started. I am Reverend Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video. Remember, stay woke.